right, good evening, everyone. It is 6:30, Monday, June 23rd. This is our Committee of the Whole meeting. I'd like to invite Josh and Haley up from Kent County and the Brownfield redevelopment. Haley, I waited till you picked up your phone before calling you out, welcome, Josh, and a little presentation here, and then Commissioners, we have a handout also that they brought with them in front of us. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? So we did hand out the Kent County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority policy, which has a lot of the information that we're going to cover today about our parameters and the process for the authority. But a couple months ago, I believe it has been now, the city of Walker opted into our authority, so we're a resource that's here for you to use. And in that time, and talking a lot with the staff, and thought it was a good time to kind of come in and talk about specifically the housing TIF portion of the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Act. So I'm just going to cover some still at a higher level, some detail about that. Hopefully that kind of helps you as you start to consider how this body might vote on brownfield plans that come before you for housing tips. So a couple years ago, the state of Michigan kind of flipped the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Act on its head. So previous to that act passing, most of the projects that were being supported under the Brownfield TIF looked a lot like the sites there on the right of your screen. So they're dilapidated, blighted, contaminated. These are sites that had condition issues on the site that prevented it from being feasible for redevelopment. And so by using tax increment financing, a developer will pick a site that looks like that as opposed to a site that looks like the one on the left to develop their factory or business or house, well, it wouldn't be house, but yeah, factory, business, things like that. When the state changed the act to where any property on which housing activities occur, now the site on the left is a brownfield site under the new definition, and there's a good kind of procedural reason why they made that change. The brownfield TIF was something that was known, fairly well used around the state of Michigan, pretty renowned throughout the United States, and was replicated. And so by just amending the act and not creating something new, then it created a bunch of more bureaucracy. And so it used an existing tool for the purpose of increasing housing development in the state. And so, but it did kind of muddy the waters a little bit on what brownfields are, and so I know a lot are still kind of struggling with that. So, really another big change is, so why would a local government approve a housing TIF plan? Why would they give up their tax capture to support a housing development? So in traditional brownfield, you're looking at, well, this is a project that either wouldn't happen, or it would happen on a different site that's less desirable for the local unit of government that has to provide that site with infrastructure, with services and things like that. So it's more efficient long-term to incentivize a project on a traditional brownfield site. In housing TIF, you're not incentivizing anything that's wrong with the site or the project itself. What you're incentivizing is the market conditions that's failing to create housing that's affordable for a large range of our residents. And so you're not really looking at, like, although we'll go through the eligible activities, like, oh, I like supporting that activity or this activity. What you're really doing is artificially lowering the cost of construction and allowing developers to provide housing that's at different price points that would not be feasible under traditional market conditions. And so that, again, is things that I've seen people struggle with on, well, I want to go through, line item by line item and start talking about which ones I want to subsidize, support, and which line items I don't. Where overall, you're supporting all of it because although it has to be reasonable, and we can have a discussion about that on what costs are in there under eligible costs. Ultimately, you're reducing the overall cost of construction, and that's the conditions that you're supporting. Recently, actually last week, our Housing Next released the updated Kent County Housing Needs Assessment, and I believe Walker is going through a process of doing your own housing assessment, if I'm not mistaken. But this gives us the most recent data that's available on the need for housing in Kent County. And so the previous one was completed a couple years ago. We, as a county as a whole, as a county as a whole, this is the balance of the county. So there's a separate one for the city of Grand Rapids. Overall, the need for rentals have went down. We've been building rental units throughout the county, and that's kind of meeting the need, although we still have a gap. But you can see the for sale units at all price points are going up. And so in red, I kind of circled the areas that are prime for brownfield TIF or housing TIF. Really that 51% AMI to 120% AMI. So you're thinking households that are making you between $60,000 and $109,000 a year if you're a family of four. That's that kind of threshold. And you can see like those are the areas that again are good for housing TIF, mostly because when you get below 50% AMI, the gap between what you can get in the market and what it would cost to build those are so wide, it's really hard to incentivize that through tax increment because the increment just isn't big enough to cover the gap. So you need other types of things, other tools that are available, and we can always talk about that. But you really look at, especially for sale housing, it's that what's called the missing middle, whatever you want to call it. It's the working families, your school teachers, police officers, people that work in your community and want to live in your community, but can't find that housing. Also, what we're seeing is and it's been a trend for a decade now, or over a decade, is we're not really seeing that housing stock being built. So young families, that can't find the housing, and so they're delaying the start of their family and things like that, and it has longer range of implications. So, really you're looking at where the sweet spot is. There's a lot of need throughout Kent County, and I'm sure City of Walker's thinking about where do we fit in. So, thinking just going over tax increment financing, just so not assuming everybody kind of knows how that works. So, when tax increment financing, a certain property is generating a certain level of taxes based on the current taxable value to all the units. So, City of Walker, to the Kent County, to the library, special millages, and up to the point where a brownfield plan is approved. So the tax base is frozen. So at that point, that's when the county in this case, would approve a brownfield plan, and that tax base is frozen. So that site will continue to generate the taxes that's generating for the City of Walker, for us as the Kent County, all the way through. And then the developer makes it their investment. So realistically, again, if it's a greenfield site, that could be a pretty big change between the taxable value of a greenfield site and the taxable value of a 50-unit housing complex. And so that increment, the taxes collected on that increase in taxable value is captured by the authority and then used to reimburse the developer for eligible expenses, and that's the green area there. And so over time, again, there's a big boost initially just from the investment that's put into place, and then over time, incrementally, that goes up as the value of the property goes up, and that's all captured and reimbursed the developer. But at some point, and this is the point we want to get to, is the developer is 100% reimbursed, and at that point, the entire project is back in the tax rolls, and all the millage entities receive the full benefit of that property. So that's tax increment financing, just in a nutshell. There's a defined period of time. Is incentivizing an investment. We know ahead of time kind of what that looks like. We set a time frame, and at the end of that, then the full property is returned to full benefit for the public. So, any questions on how tax increment financing works?
Commissioners, all good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, a couple definitions we're going to talk about. So, qualified rehabilitation is the rehabilitation of existing structures to make it suitable for sale for an income qualified purchaser. So a lot of what you're going to see is that income qualified term. So within the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Act, when they put in place housing TIF, it really is meant to incentivize those projects that are prepared for households that make at or below 120% AMI. So again, for a family of four currently in Kent County, that's about $109,000 would be that household would be earning. And then the income qualified household, again, that's defined there. So except for one exception, and I'll show you, all the rehabilitation, all the housing development is for those income qualified households. So yeah, just to define what we mean by affordable, or sometimes you hear workforce housing. In this case, with a lot of other programs, it's that 120% area median income or lower. And so just going over eligible activities. So The first bullet really deals with rental housing, so refurbishing rental housing for, again, for qualified rehabilitation. The cost of infrastructure for public use and safety improvements for a housing project. So you'll notice this is the one instance where that income qualifying terminology is not used. So you're gonna have developers, if you're not already kind of walking through your door saying, well, I have this housing development, you know, it's all gonna be market rate, but I need help with infrastructure. If we can't put in infrastructure, we're not gonna be able to do this project. They do not have to income qualify the tenants in that if they only use this for infrastructure. Now, there's a local benefit, so up until this change, the city of Walker couldn't use brownfield TIF for infrastructure. And so some local units are thinking like, okay, well, now we can do that. And so that housing development actually will allow us to run infrastructure to a point where we wanted it anyways. And so there's a dual public benefit to that. But also on the other side is that reasonableness and kind of thinking about what you want to incentivize, because ultimately the spirit of the legislation was to provide kind of workforce housing, affordable housing, or whatever we call it. But there's like this little loophole in there, and you could reasonably have a development that has $1 million homes asking for, or you could approve a housing TIF for infrastructure for a large development with high-end homes. So that's just the thing to think about. But you certainly gonna have developers coming and saying, well, we don't have to, you know, do that part. We just need the infrastructure piece, and that's one of the reasons why they're doing that. And we could talk more through that if there's questions on how that could be useful or not useful. The demo and renovation of existing buildings, the site prep, again, for income qualified households. You can, for temporary relocation, so if somebody's redeveloping an apartment complex that has current tenants, if they have to relocate those tenants and then locate them back after the end of the project, that's eligible, those costs are eligible. Acquisition, only in a certain instance, blighted or functional obsolete rental units, again, to just, if the end project produces income qualified household units. And then the last one is probably the one that you're gonna see used the most, and that was kind of the game changer, was a reimbursement to a developer to fill a financing gap for a housing project. So that means if there's a housing project, again, it's gotta be for families that, tenants that make 120% AMI or less, and they can prove that they have a gap in their financing, in their pro forma, they could come and ask for basically you to fill that through reimbursement through long-term brownfield TIF. And again, a lot of brownfield plans that I've seen are using that specifically, and most importantly for new kind of housing development, not rehabilitation. So any questions on eligible uses? We'll kind of use some of these examples further in my presentation, but if there's just wait, I don't get what's eligible and what's not at this point. But essentially every housing investment is eligible if you think about it. Yeah. Was there a question?
No, good.
Okay.
Nope.
So Kent County went through a process. We interviewed local units of government. We interviewed developers, some that have used brownfield TIF in the past, some that this is very new for, and we thought through kind of what are some of the parameters that we want to put in place. So there's a lot of detail in the legislation where there is no definition. So for instance, the length of capture is something that's defined in the act. You can approve a brownfield plan for up to 30 years of tax capture. However, Kent County, our commissioners are adverse to long TIF projects, so they wanted to limit to 15 years. And we've seen that be successful in our community. That's what Ada did when they had their brownfield plan. None of their projects were more than 15 years long. However, we put the caveat that it could be extended for housing projects if the local unit of government is supportive of it and the developer can demonstrate that there is really a need. That without that extended capture, that the project just would not be feasible. And so that's a back and forth with the developer, us, but also local unit of government. If you're not supportive of it, then it would never move forward. Definition of affordability, that's something that's pretty universal, but I get a lot of questions on that, on what is considered affordable. Really, you're looking at a unit price, whether it be for your mortgage or for rent, that allows a household in the target AMI to spend 30% or less of their disposable income on housing. Period of affordability, this part was not in the legislation at all. So these are things that we had to just create. So it's like, well, what if we do incentivize at the county level, a project, how long do those units have to be held at that rate that were agreed to? And that's different for rentals and for sales. So for rentals, that period is 10 years or the length of capture. So if they ask for 15 years, that length of affordability is 15 years, or whichever is longer. So, but it's at least 10 years. So if they ask for 5 years of reimbursement, they still have to hold it for 10 years. So that's our minimum. For sale, the period is 5 years. And we have a tool to, because you can think, well, what if I buy a home that was incentivized through housing TIF, and 2 years later my job moves, I have to relocate. Then am I stuck in this home for 3 more years? And so there is a way to that we can essentially take a second position on a forgivable loan that goes away over 5 years, 20% a year. It's a tool we use for some of our HUD projects, so it's pretty straightforward. But ultimately, maybe we can get reimbursement for some of our expenses through that. Maybe not. It depends on really what the market. Have second position for all these. So, but at least it's a tool to prevent. Really, people are worried about is house flipping. So you imagine you incentivize a house, you buy it, you immediately have equity. So what's to prevent that person from just selling it the next year and then moving on? So we want to kind of reduce that as much as possible. And the other part that was not defined in the act was the proportion of affordable units. So, you know, the Kent County and really our Housing Next, a lot of our housing providers, you know, we really do want to see more mixed income housing. You know, all the data shows that healthy neighborhoods, healthy communities are those that have a mixture of income levels throughout. So it's not healthy for a community to, you know, to concentrate poverty in a certain area. Well, I guess a community that's affluent isn't complaining, but it's really good to have that mixture as we think about developments. We don't want to concentrate, like this is the 100%, this is where the people that don't have, you know, an income go, and this is where the people that have affluency go. And so try to have more of that mixture throughout our community. So, but at a minimum, 20% of the units in a development for the county to support it have to be in that affordable rate. So that's the minimum that we would set. So application requirements, so going through the process, I won't go into these in detail. That's actually in the handout that you have too on what we require. But ultimately what you're looking at is the project financials. You know, we want to see the rendering, site plan, and then that brownfield plan, the Act 381 work plan is all the detail that we need to approve a project, that you'll see to approve a project, and then ultimately we need to get approval from the state if the project is seeking school tax capture. We're also going to want to see the rent rolls, you know, what are they proposing, as well as, if necessary, there's a housing subsidy calculation if you're not qualifying the project based on financing gap, essentially. So. Yeah. And then just briefly on the process, and so I believe we went through this when you opted in, but so first the applicant has a project. We very much encourage before we get to the application that the developers are engaging with the local unit of government, engaging with us at the county, and we're advising on where this project needs to go before they put a whole bunch of work into developing a brownfield plan. As the application is coming together, the county looks at it not from this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. It's really a tactical review on is everything in there accurate, and does it reflect the conversations that we've had? Does it reflect some of the conversations we've heard from the local unit of government to set it up for success? But ultimately, the local body, this body is the first entity that needs to approve it. So in the city of Walker, I know you also have a Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, and it makes complete sense for that authority to review these brownfield plans too and approve them. But ultimately, from the county's perspective, this is the body that needs to approve that plan. So if you need advice from another body before that, that's great. We encourage that. But ultimately, we would be looking for this body to approve it. If you do not approve a brownfield plan, it does not move on to the next process. So you have complete control over all of that. And we will never take up a brownfield plan that you have not approved. And we actually can't do that under the act. Assuming that you approve it, it then goes to the county's authority to approve at that level. And then it goes on to the county commission. There will be a public hearing at that point where anyone that has kind of support or has questions about a project come and be heard. And then that county commission either votes to whether or not to approve it. And then if the developer is asking for state tax or school tax capture, then we submit it to the state on the developer's behalf. And we work with the state to get that approved, and that's a process in itself. So, I just want to stress that this is a new tool. It's kind of the wild, wild west out there. A lot of developers are trying to figure out how they can use it. A lot of local units are figuring out how they're going to use it. And I think it's really important to think about local priorities to a couple things. Is one, so you're not doing one-offs. Every project that comes through, you're not kind of reinventing the wheel and like, well, I like this part and don't like this part. And also to just signal to the development community on what it is that you support and don't support. And that way they know what to expect as they're moving forward, because that uncertainty is also money. And ultimately, if you want to see some of these come forward, you're going to want to put out what those priorities are, or else you're going to just get a lot of people kind of guessing at what you're wanting to see. So very much encourage you to go through that process of thinking through what your local priorities are. You can exceed the counties. So like you think, well, we don't like 15-year capture. We would rather set it at 10. You can definitely do that, as long as you can't say we're going to do 20, but if it's more stringent than our requirements, then that's perfectly fine. That was just our minimum requirements for us to approve it at the county level. And I guess with that, I'll leave it for questions. Oh, it was longer than I thought.
Commissioner Burke?
This may not be for you, this may be for you. What's the process inside the city by which we would graduate one of these things to send to Kent County? And what I mean by that is, the plan isn't going to come to city commission first look, here you go, here's our great idea for the city, right? It's going to go, through planning maybe, or is it going to go through anybody else first to kind of tee up?
Some of that will determine by policy, but we can use a real-world example for a project at the southwest corner of Lake Michigan Drive and Maynard. That's a project that went through Planning Commission and City Commission for site plan review and rezoning. So both boards got a shot at that, made edits, plan was approved. Now, if they move forward, and they've expressed interest in doing so, we're already working on an application, subject to a lot of clarification that come from this board on policy. Their next step, if this all comes together, would be our Brownfield Authority. And then the Brownfield Authority would make a recommendation to this board to either approve or deny the housing TIF plan. So I guess to answer your question, from staff standpoint, we're certainly not going to just drop a TIF plan on the elected official board and say yay or nay.
Right.
It should incrementally build its way up towards a TIF plan.
No, that sounds great. That's exactly what I was
Would it
asking.
always go through PC first before going to the Brownfield board?
Well, it depends on what kind of project. If it's a greenfield development, like the one at Maynard and Lake
Yeah.
Michigan Drive, or Vista 45, which is the other one that's talking about this, those are greenfield projects. So they certainly have to go to Planning Commission and most likely City Commission for rezonings.
Yep.
If there's a rehab that comes in, you saw some of the stuff that Josh had in there. Say one of our existing apartment complexes wanted to do a full gut and rehab and do this. That would probably, and it's all interior, that's probably not going to Planning Commission or City Commission, but we would certainly dial you in as early as possible if they're talking about some kind of residential TIF.
Okay, so that, I like the first answer. I didn't-
Yeah,
I didn't
I
like
know.
the second answer. So, because in order for us to sort of look at the view for our master plan, I think we need an example. Let's say we got the ABC warehouse or whatever on Alpine, or one of these strip malls on Lake Michigan Drive. And we have a view of what we want that to start to become in the future. And you could have it be mostly apartments where the top floor is penthouses. So it does have a distribution of money and income throughout the apartment complex, but it's getting you more urbanized in the urban parts of the city in a way that's sensible, going vertical in those areas where you're just staying away from every brownfield in the city necessarily. You're going vertical where it makes sense to go vertical. But we all deliberate on that after somebody has sort of reviewed it and teed it up for us, rather than just handing us a, hey, here's a great idea out there. So I think policy should have some level of review. Maybe planning should be doing that, or the brownfield folks. I think that should be in the process.
But I think like back to Frank's point though, is like even if they do like an interior existing one, like PC's not gonna have much of a opinion on that because it's not gonna change anything really for us that way.
If it's like to like,
Yeah.
say we have an existing apartment building that is aging out and the developer wants to just do interior renovations, You know, it starts as an apartment building, it ends as an apartment building, it still would go to Brownfield Authority, and I think we didn't need to talk about who's on the Brownfield Authority, because we haven't generated that for quite some time. That would give this board some visibility. If it's something that is a major change, like I think we're foreseeing for parts of Alpine Avenue, where the boxes are, where the movie theaters are at, then those, if they wanted to come in and just for the sake of argument, say, we're gonna take the parking lot behind the movie theater and the movie theater, we wanna convert that to housing, that has to go to Planning Commission. Any kind of a change in use that would be that significant triggers Planning Commission
Change
review.
of use
so
or like
I-
facade changes probably too.
I disagree, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Just because it was one thing, doesn't mean the master plan calls for it to continue to be that thing. And we need to start getting planning commission to understand that their job is to also look at what the future of the city is supposed to be, and put that into their calculus as they approve projects, instead of yet another gas station that was recently approved. So I'd like to see us, have our planning commission understand that's part of their job.
Sure.
Is not just to rubber stamp stuff because the zoning allows. Well, what's the vision for the area call for? So I think that's an important part of the calculus.
And from a staff standpoint, we're open to all these details, and I think that's why, in my opinion, and Daryl's the boss, so I'm gonna do whatever he tells us to do, but I think what we need to do, in my opinion, is it'd be good to get a committee together between Planning Commission and City Commission. And let's talk out the details of this policy, because we can cover the questions that Tom's raising here as part of that, and then more specific to the actual policy that may help you make a determination on what do you want to do as these projects come in. What are eligible expenses that the city wants to support? One of the interesting things that we've been talking about from the beginning is, the next subdivision that comes in, market rate housing, they could come in and say, like Josh said, we need help with all these utilities. You're making us put in road, water, sewer, and drain, and we need money back on that. How are you going to make a decision on that? We certainly haven't done that. But now it's allowed by law. So I think that to define that policy at this level, in this kind of a forum, it may not be very productive. You may want to get a group together that we can sit around with the whiteboard, call the county people in and say, let's look at some variables that we need to get in this policy. And then we can overlap things like zoning law too, when it comes to some of the things that you're talking about as well. So that's my recommendation as a follow-up to this, that we get some kind of committee together, Planning Commission, City Commission, and invite the county, and let's blend together a policy.
This is a cool authority. I just want us to be able to use it the way we want to use it, and not just put up cookie cutter houses.
Sounds like we have a volunteer for the Brownfield Board.
That's what I just heard, so. Mr. City Manager?
Yeah, just to follow up on what Frank says and what the slide says here is local prioritization, I think, is the key in setting the policy. I mean, where do you want to permit these things? Is it all over the city? Is there certain areas you want to permit? Are there target areas? Or, we don't have to give carte blanche approval for this everywhere throughout the city. So I think we can set those parameters for certain areas. We might want to see certain things, and then what kind of items are eligible, or do we feel are eligible for reimbursement? This is all new to us. I mean, we've never done this before. We had a request come to our DDA the other day for this to 45, and we just listened there. It was just more of a listening session, but all these things are important, I think, and I think Frank raises a good idea. Let's get something on paper so when developers come in, we can say yay or nay. You check this box, we can consider it. If you don't, maybe you need to look elsewhere in the city, or this isn't the place to do that. So.
We don't want to waste the developer's time going through this, or even our time going through this too, to be like, in the end, no, we don't want this at all, or anything like that, or even.
Right, I think that's a decision we need to make at the commission through some policy and set that policy so it's fair for the developers and anybody else that comes in. That they know what the rules are when they come to Walker. You're going to go through this process. If it's this location, whatever. So it's new to everybody. It's new to the developers, new to the county. So we're all learning as Josh said. It's different than the traditional brownfield where we've done 5 or 6 of those and they work out great. We've had very successful projects, but this is all new with the Greenfield site, so.
When was the last time the city did like a brownfield?
Oh, it's probably been about 10 years. Fines Islestra, I think was the last one we did, where they rehabbed the school. We paid for some interior work in that building. Yeah.
Before that, it was even, I think, another 10 years prior to it.
Well, we did it. We've done a couple for Visser along West River Drive and some of the warehouses there. And then, yeah, and then the first one we did was the H. Brown site on Turner Avenue, which used to be a battery dump down there along the river. I mean, that was super successful, and that's still not reimbursed fully yet. It's going on 25 years.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Well, if it would indulge the commission, knowing your chair is a stickler on time starting the meeting, so it is 7 o'clock. I'd like to continue the conversation, talk about an ad hoc committee, internal committee here, and then the brownfield redevelopment from there. So if we could, Josh, if you, Haley could stay for a couple minutes, we'll go and get started here. So it is 7 o'clock, Monday, June 23. We'll call our regular city commission meeting for the city of Walker, Michigan to order. I'd like to invite Commissioner DeShane to lead us in invocation as well as Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner?
Shall we pray? Loving God, we thank you for the gift of summertime, for the longer days and the warm sunshine. We ask for your blessing upon our community, that we may experience refreshment of the mind and the body, and that our homes may be filled with joy, love, and peace. Help us to be generous and considerate, not only thinking of ourselves, but also thinking of others to enjoy the blessings of this season. Guide our steps and strength our hearts as we navigate summer adventures and make meaningful connections. May we be a source of encouragement and support to one another, and may our community be a place of unity and love. We pray for safety during our travels and for wisdom in our decisions. Please be with our police, our fire, and our military to keep them from harm. In all that we do this summer, may we strive to make positive impacts on the lives of those around us, reflecting your love and grace. Amen.
I'd like to invite everybody to stand and join us at the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. If I could please ask your clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Carey,
Present.
Commissioner Gilbert, Commissioner Babcock,
Present.
Commissioner Groders,
Present.
Commissioner Chase, Commissioner DeShane, Commissioner Burke.
Present.
And before jumping forward, thank you to all those at the last commission meeting for getting the budget passed, and great work done there. I'm going to jump to approval minutes first, and then we'll continue our conversation in there. Is there any questions on the June 9th, 2025 City Commission meeting minutes? Seeing, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval and support, please.
I'll make a motion.
Support.
Commissioner DeShane, Commissioner Chase won the race. I'm going to pick her for the next game show contest. So all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you all. So let's pick up with this discussion again with Josh. Excuse me. So, when we're talking, one of the things that was coming to mind as I was listening to all is when we talk about local prioritization, we have to set some priorities of what is important to us as a community. I agree with Commissioner Burke, aligned with the master plan is an absolute must-have. And I think a smaller working group will accomplish that as well. But before we even get to the brownfield redevelopment, just to get some of that, some of those parameters in place, maybe a couple members from the planning commission, a couple from the city commission. I heard we already have one volunteer, I believe, or nominated one volunteer. But with that in mind, is one of the other words that comes to my mind is, or two words as I was listening, was spirit and intent. What is the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish? And that's going to be part of that working group meeting, that we have to determine what those priorities are. And I think that spirit of, when you go to Act 381, what was the spirit and intent of Act 381? I don't know if you've got thoughts any from your end. I know it's not your law that you passed, but.
Well, I do. And really it was to be a tool that doesn't change a local unit government's kind of housing strategy and zoning. It is a tool to allow you to accomplish your strategy. So we look at just the this based on the need that has been quantified. It really is, well, what are each of these kind of goals and needs within your own community? And if you're lacking in any of these areas, then it creates additional stress on the residents. And that's, they're paying 50%, 60% out of pocket for their housing. And what flow-over effect does that have, when you look at traditionally, like, families with children are the ones that are struggling the most, and, families that are taking care of seniors themselves, that are aging out and they don't have anywhere to go, that is affordable but has less maintenance than their current home. So, it really was meant to accomplish these housing goals, and really this one specifically was meant for that missing middle. It's what they continue to call it. These are the families that are working professionals that just struggle to find affordable housing for sale and rental. And the for sale gets missed a lot when we have these conversations about brownfield. This is a great tool to use for sale housing for the working families in our county and your community.
Awesome. No, good feedback. Thanks, Josh. I want to reinforce that as we have to look into our local prioritization opportunities there. What I think we have to determine too is those priorities are aligned with there's always that counter effect. If we're saying that we're going to allow this, incentivize this and help out to help promote that growth, there's a trade-off there. And this group has to, weigh out, is the squeeze worth the juice, or how it goes, juice worth the squeeze? That's what we've got to weigh out there. So not steering in a direction either way, but I think it's one, obviously we know we need the housing area. We're a very desirable community in West Michigan for people to live, as the continued, growth and news and things going on with the city, that it's opportunistic for us, but it needs to align with the things that we hold true to be important. So those are my thoughts as I was sitting there, and I might have jumped the gun there. Is there thoughts from the right side with our commissioners? So anything else further to the left?
Just one thing. I think you're kind of hitting on it, Mayor, and Frank had good comments there too. The balance here is we're accountable, in my view, to the master plan, because it's out there. It's our public record of where we're going to go. So if it says we're going to develop an area to be mixed use, well, that's what it says. And so I think we can defend that for the NIMBY person who's not in my backyard kind of person. Hey, look, we've been telling you this for years now. What we can't do is put up affordable, quote unquote, housing that's crap in 20 years.
Right.
So what we have to do then is be very disciplined about using this tool to go out on that limb we say we want to go out on of working mixed use, but we're completely nothing to defend ourselves if we build a bunch of junk. And so that's why, in my mind, it needs to be, my first apartment was 750 square feet, a pull-out couch, right? But it was a great neighborhood, and it was a really cool area, and I was willing to live in a very small place to be in a great spot, and I could afford it. So some of these up-and-comers, being in a relatively urban area, might really like that. And then as you go higher in the apartment complex, well, now you get your penthouse with two bedrooms, et cetera, et cetera. Sure. And there's some dispersion there. But if you build I don't want to pick on York Creek, but I drive by it all the time. If you build an apartment complex, it just doesn't hold up very well, even over the course of the 15 years. That would be tragic if it's bad in 12 years before you're even done paying it back. But in 20 years, then you really got a problem. So we got to have some discipline behind that, in my view, to hold the course we say we want to hold.
So noted.
I'd like to also see that we get what we really need. Maybe we need another veterinarian area on Alpine or somewhere, and maybe that can be like an anchor, a part of it, and whatever. But I think we need to be creative, but we need to make sure that we're aligning with the master plan.
All right. Any other comments, city managers? Either one?
We have one more member.
Yeah, please.
One more member from City Commission, if possible.
Yeah.
I think we have Tom on the committee, ad hoc committee. Anybody else want to join us?
Do you want me on as PC or City Commission?
Love to have you on there. Thank you for volunteering.
You're going to probably have two roles.
Yeah, I was just thinking because I'd be both then.
When people step up. I'd like to invite our friends from the county too, with Josh and Haley, if scheduling permitted, and have staff work with something. I'd like to try and get, at least one, if not two, from planning. If that, maybe two, even though you're on as, you're wearing two hats, so you're a wild card there, as a bonus, but, I'd like to see two, so if we could check with, Chairman Schweitzer to see, two volunteers, maybe just have Emily coordinate the schedule with all the parties, and, let's, a little sooner than later. I know this is picking up some steam and interest. I know we have some developers that are very interested in what is the city's position on this going to be. So I don't want this to be something that we're come the holidays or even Labor Day, that we should be able to get our prioritization, get things aligned, have that policy come back in front of this governing board, adopt that policy at that point in time, and then that gives the marching orders out. Gives us time too to make sure that we're strategically aligned with who we have on the Brownfield redevelopment plan, because it has been a while.
Yeah.
And from that perspective, I think we can move forward. Does that sound?
That's great. We're here as a resource for just those instances.
No, you and Haley have been tremendous. You've been in this room with us more times than I can count, and providing the feedback, whether in person or electronically. So appreciate the air cover and support that we get from you as a partner. Appreciate the candor and discussion up here, and it's we always it's one of the things that we as a board have taken that tradition of we don't run into the fire because it's on fire. We'll make sure we have all the right tools and resources. Good enough? Too soon? No. Okay, all right. So anyway, that being said, so we'll let you guys go for the night unless there's anything else from the county's perspective.
No, thank you for your time today. Happy to come back.
Well, thank you for coming out. Yeah, very much so. Cool. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Haley. All right, thank you, commissioners, for indulging us on that one. Next on the list is public comment on any agenda items. Any public comment? Nope, everybody's running for the hills, so we'll move on to consent agenda. Expenditures in the amount of $512,155.83. Is there any question on the bills? Seeing, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval and support, please.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Support.
You all were rushing a couple minutes ago. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you all. Next is other public comment. There's nobody in the audience because they just left. I will turn, Madam Clerk, we'll start with you this time. Commissioner Gilbert?
Yeah, good personnel committee meeting. The mayor was asking us to impart upon the members of the commission to be timely in your reviews, which will be sent to us in the next week for our police chief and our city manager. So
There was no coarse language used in that ask.
yes, of course there was not, but
Okay.
I would just like to impart the importance onto our members that we would like to be done with that this summer and not going into the fall.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Additionally, just wanted to mention there was a delegation of elected officials from Northern Ireland that visited West Michigan last week. I had the chance to visit with those folks, talk a little bit in the role in local government, get a little bit of their perspective, which was very interesting. Fascinating that they have a lot of the same problems over there, and they just use a lot of different words for the same things. Also interesting that they have some things that are quite different. One being that they raise their tax rates annually. And if we were doing that, I can't imagine that any of us would be sitting around here. So it is the amazing cultural difference of Western Europe versus us over here in the United States. But just thought that was of interest and figured I'd share.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Growers?
Tomorrow morning, the DDA has a subcommittee meeting with our consultant for the area behind Station 2, and hopefully we will make some good progress there.
Thank you. Commissioner Chase? Commissioner DeShane?
Yep, couple things. Tomorrow, we have the Next Gen Academy, Tuesday night, tomorrow. And we will be working with the police department presentation, and I'm looking forward to that. On Wednesday, we have our park party. Community Engagement Committee is putting on a park party, and we're going to be spotlighting Alpine Estate Park. It will be a very hot evening, I'm sure. 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. There will be booths with local businesses. Chick-fil-A will be there. We will have some games and activity, triple toss, disc dash, golf target, jump ropes, and a media wall for selfie station. And we have a rain date. If it rains, we'll have it the following Thursday, which will be the 26th. So same time, same place. Looking forward to it. We're really doing some great things with this committee, and they're really, literally engaging within their community.
Love it. Commissioner Burke? Thanks. Mr. Assistant City Manager, wow. Mr. City Manager.
Only thing, good discussion on the brownfield. I think it'd be helpful to have a DDA member on there as well, since we've had a request in the DDA, so if we could add one of them, and we could ask tomorrow at the meeting.
Commissioners, good? So noted.
Yeah,
Please.
so, other than that, good.
We could add that, Madam Clerk, to the, so we'll have 2 city commissioners, 2 planning commissioners, DDA member, 1 or 2? 1? Okay, 1, and then, Josh and Haley. Oh, that's all right, so, yeah, he's got it, yeah, so, I just thought for meeting minutes, sorry, that we agreed that we'll add a DDA member to it. I think it's a great idea. All right. Anything else, Stone? 2 things. One, little fun fact, there's not a city, I'm going to make an ask for consideration. There's not a city in the state of Michigan right now that is a sister city in Ireland. Little fun fact. Anybody know that? I said I would bring this back up before I left office, so. Australia's a long, long ways away. And while I've tried to keep in touch with the mayors there, they've also had some mayor transitions since holding this office for me. But that Ireland thing would be kind of cool. And if there's some similarities, I wouldn't mind hearing a business case that I could make a pitch to this group on behalf of you, the group and the city managers for consideration for something like that. So just put that one out there. Last thing is, obviously, there was news that broke, public meeting here on the aquarium, considering, the zoo considering a site in the city of Walker for the aquarium. That is still under consideration, a lot of moving parts with it, a lot of complexities. And I'll just say that, it's under consideration there. I just want to reemphasize that they've shared with some of the news media just in passing discussions. It's not about Walker, it's about West Michigan. What a project to come apart. And when you look at the land usage down there, if this can work, it is the highest, best possible usage for land based on all of the many, many things we've heard over the years. I would even say decades about potentially for that site. That really has an opportunity with the zoo's mission and their approach to the environment to really align with that, if it can all work out. And if it doesn't, it doesn't, but it was worth the shot on that end of it. So I just want to say thank you to staff for helping coordinate a lot of requests coming in. Zoo staff has done a great job running point on it. Just let them, it is a zoo project, but obviously the city's up to their neck in it. So outside of that, and if there's nothing else for the good of the order, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment, please. Commissioner Gilbert, Commissioner Babcock, all those in favor, please say aye.